Hey YouTubers, welcome to another video on my channel. Today we'll be doing something a little different. I'll be showing you how I created this movable mermaid tail, all done using acrylic powders and glitter. Pretty to look at, fun to create, but of course I will not consider this a wearable design. So if you want to see how I did this, just keep watching. So I'm starting by pinching my foam down the middle. I am not going to be sculpting this nail into a C curve. I'm going to be sculpting it somewhat like a V, so an upside down V, so that my mermaid tail will really come to life. So once I've applied that foam, I'm just going to apply a bead of my Picasso's universal powder in reverse and begin sculpting a smile line. So while my smile line is drying, I'm going to begin working on the mermaid tail. So I take a second foam and I fold it down the middle to create that ridge in the middle of the mermaid tail, and then I am going to visualize the shape that I want as well as the size, so that when I begin working on the tail, I have an idea of what I want the shape to look like. So then I take a bead of clear acrylic and I immediately begin sculpting a very thin layer of the shape of the mermaid tail, and then I am going to basically sandwich the colored acrylic and the glitter in between that layer and a layer of clear acrylic on top. So whenever you hear say terms like encapsulated acrylic or we are encapsulating the design, what it means is that we have encapsulated the colored acrylic or the glitter or mylar sheets in between two layers of clear acrylic. So once I'm satisfied with the shape of the base of this tail, I just gently pinch my foam to make sure that the acrylic sets with that ridge down the middle so that it dries in the shape that I want it to. Okay, so I'm basically just creating a gradient of 3 colors in the shape of the mermaid fin using acrylic powders. So the first powder that I've placed, it's Kiwi from Picaso powders, and it's a beautiful pastel green, and I'm using that as the middle transition color between the top shade and the bottom shade in my gradient. So once I've applied the product, I use my 3D acrylic brush to go in and make sure that I keep the shape of my tail as close to perfect as possible. So I'm carving out those ridges in her fin with my 3D brush. So I'm now applying Summer, which is a beautiful mid-tone shimmery green from Picasso powders, to the first third of my gradient, and I'm using feathering strokes to blend her onto Kiwi as seamless as possible. So I'm just using light feathering strokes as I go down the tail to blend her into Kiwi. With a small clear bead of acrylic, I'm currently picking up mermaid tail number 3, which is a beautiful duochrome mermaid glitter. She shifts in between a blue and green glitter, and I'm applying her to the top of my tail, and I'm feathering her downward onto the shape of the tail. Also trying to create somewhat of a gradient with this glitter. So I'm applying the majority of the product to the top of the tail, and I'm just using the tip of my brush to feather pieces of that glitter downward onto Summer and Kiwi. With my 3D brush, I'm now picking up Caribbean, which is somewhat of a neon pastel orange, and I'm using her to highlight the tips of my mermaid tail, and I'm blending her up into Kiwi with feathering strokes. And like if I was not already satisfied, I went in on top of everything that I've already done with a thin layer of unicorn from Picaso powders, which is a transparent white acrylic powder with really pretty unicorn looking glitter in it. And now I'm adding one more layer of that mermaid tail number 3 duochrome glitter to the top of that tail. Once I'm satisfied with this look, I go ahead and I encapsulate the design with a layer of clear acrylic. So we're going to begin adding some definition to the tail, and what I do is I place small beads of acrylic along the tips of the tail, and I just feather that backward into the tail with my acrylic brush. Okay, so I'm going to begin creating the ridges in the tail, and let me try to explain this as best as possible. So what I'm doing is to start creating the ridges or the ribs in the tail, I use the tip of my brush and I begin to lift the wet acrylic while it's still pliable and raise it off of the nail foam. So once I have those raised segments in place, what I do is I go in with a bead of acrylic onto the raised segment of the tail, and I begin creating strips, blending it upward into the tail with my acrylic brush. So I'm not flattening out the beads of acrylic, I'm creating strips, but I'm making sure that the sides of the strip of acrylic is blended into the tail seamlessly. Okay, so once I'm finished with those ripples, I look at it from every angle and make sure that I'm satisfied with it. Once I am, I just set it aside to dry, and let's begin working on the nail itself. To perfect my smile line, once the acrylic has hardened and dried thoroughly, I use my nail file and I go in and begin to file it into that perfect smiley shape. So to create this free edge on this nail, I'm just going to be using Summer and Kiwi, and I'll be creating a gradient with those two colors, and I'll also be positioning that mermaid tail glitter really tight along that smile line and giving it a slight gradient out onto the shaft of my free edge. Now with the shape of this nail, I'm trying to sculpt the acrylic along the shape of the foam. So I'm creating a V with the acrylic. So I'm patting the acrylic against the foam to make sure that it lays flat into a V shape. When I'm finished creating the gradient with the acrylic powders and applying my glitter, I'm going to use clear acrylic to encapsulate the design, of course, but I'm also going to be using it to build a ledge in the middle of the nail. So I'm forming a upside down V shape with the clear acrylic. I carefully peel away the nail foam from the back of my fin, and then I use the 1/8 grit side of my nail file to file and shape the outside of the fin. Then I go in with a diamond cone bit on the inside of the fin to perfect the shape of the ridges and the ripples. Then I just use the worn out buffer to buff the surface of that fin and try to get the corner of my buffer into the seams of the ripples to smoothen it out further. Okay, by now that tip should be dry and hardened enough. So we're going to remove the nail foam, and I'm going to pinch and pull the foam downward as to not crack or break that acrylic that we've worked so hard on. Now if you look down the barrel of the nail, you would see that it's almost like a reversed narrow V. So when we're filing, we're going to try to keep that shape and keep the edge up on top as sharp as possible. I went ahead and cleaned and buffed and cleaned the nail as well as the tail, and I just used some isopropyl alcohol and a lint-free wipe to remove the excess dust. Now I am using this piercing tool that I got from Amazon to pierce a hole at the top of that fin. I'm using my index finger on my opposite hand to secure the fin so that it does not break, and to catch the piercing tool as it reaches on the other side of that fin. I forgot to mention that before I pierced the fin, I added one layer of my gel polish top coat and cured for 60 seconds under my LED lamp. Now I am just picking out two of these jump rings. Well, they're really hoops designed to hang like nail charms off of pierced nails, but today we are using them as jump rings. So what I do is I just use two cuticle nippers, old ones of course, and I hold either side of the jump ring with the cuticle nipper, and I begin to separate and open the jump rings, and I remove that little gold ball from the jump ring. I use the cuticle nipper to help me feed the jump ring through the hole of the fin, and then I trim away any excess pieces of the jump ring as to shorten the pole, so that when I now close the jump ring back, it's significantly smaller than what I started with. This will help make the appearance of the tail of the mermaid fin look as though it's really close to the tip of the nail. I'm now piercing a hole as close as possible to the edge of the nail. I'm not going too close to the edge though, because I don't want to break the acrylic. And then I will attach the second jump ring to this tip, and then I will connect the two jump rings to each other so that the tail will now be hanging off of the tip of this nail. So now that we have some motion going on, I'm going to conceal that first jump ring by applying a mermaid pearl with my brush on resin, and then I'm going to decorate the balance of the nail with some Swarovski crystals and some mermaid nail charms. I will leave a link in the cards above for you to check out my video on how I apply my Swarovski crystals and bling to my nails. Before my glue sets completely, I move around the mermaid tail to the bottom until it dries, as to ensure that the glue does not seize up on the jump rings, which will hinder the movement of the mermaid tail. So while I'm applying my mermaid bling, let me just tell you that in some cases I may not be too descriptive with the product that I use in a video or where I purchased it. However, for all of my videos, I always leave a list of products down in the description bar below, as well as links to the website or the product itself, or where you can purchase the item. So feel free to always check out the description bar under each of my videos on your way out. And I have been seeing the comments under my previous videos, and I just wanted to clarify for those of you who have been guessing, yes, the accent is that of a Trini girl or a Trinidadian nail tech. So here you have it, my completed movable mermaid nail design. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I've enjoyed creating it for you. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you have not already. Click that subscribe button. Thanks so much for joining me again. Bye.